Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Supporting Yah's Cornerstone. My name is Heshra'ah, and that name means moved by Yah. In today's video, it's a get to know me video, and I'm going to talk about my husband and I's decision to homeschool and how we came about that decision and the beginning of our homeschooling journey. So when I met my husband, I had an 8-year-old son. He was 7 or 8 years old. And at that point, he had already been going to public school. And that continued even after I married my husband. So about, I want to say, 3 years after I married my husband, and my son started having issues at school off and on. And the last incident that happened, neither one of us really understood or liked the school's response to it. I can't remember the exact, what the exact incident was about. There had been things, a few things happened even before that. I want to say having to do with being bullied. Is what I want to say it was about. And the last incident, I want to say, had something surrounding that at that time. So when my son was in 3rd grade, whatever that last incident was in 3rd grade, that's when my husband and I started just thinking about public school, and we started thinking about, whether we should be teaching him at home. That's when we started really thinking about whether he should be taught at home and whether we should be homeschooling. And then I remember we were walking and talking one day, and the scripture Deuteronomy 6 and 7 came to our mind, where it says, "And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." So we was thinking like, well, that sound like you with your child most of the day, and it sounds like maybe we should be teaching our own children instead of sending them to public school anyway. That was our thought process at the time. But we hadn't thought about it before that last incident when our son was in the 3rd grade. We hadn't thought about it. And I know I hadn't thought about it as far as the Creator wanting the children, that the parents should be teaching the children. We hadn't thought about it. We hadn't thought about that at all. But that's what sparked our thoughts to homeschool. And so at that time, our son was in the 3rd grade. And so we decided that we would start homeschooling the following school term, which would have put him in the 4th grade. I didn't know anything about homeschooling. I was a public school student myself up until 10th grade, and then I did make a decision to finish and get my high school diploma through the mail. But at the time, I didn't think about that I was homeschooling myself or anything like that. I didn't think about that. So I had really no knowledge of homeschool, hadn't had any plans on ever homeschooling any children, and had no experience at all teaching at all. So I started to kind of ask around about homeschooling at the time. Now this is the early 2000s. I didn't know of any Black people in my area that homeschooled at the time. And the Edomites, or white people in my area at the time, seemed a little standoffish about even talking to me about the topic, I remember at the time. But what happened was how I ended up getting more information, because at the time I really didn't know, I didn't know anything about it, or how to even begin. So I remember at the time I was at the public library, and I met a Edomite or white woman there while I was just in the library. And I don't know how homeschooling came up, but I remember that she told me that if I would come to her house, she had a lot of magazines and information that she could share with me and give to me about homeschooling. And so I had, I want to say 2 children at the time. Yeah, I want to say 2. And so we set a time for me to come by her house, and I did. And we sat on her back porch, and she pulled out magazines and things like that, and showed me different publications about homeschooling, and shared her knowledge of homeschooling with me. And she sent me home with a good bit of literature about homeschooling, including literature about the laws in Mississippi concerning homeschooling at the time. So that was really helpful. I sat there a long time, and she shared with me what she knew, as I said before, and literature concerning homeschooling. When I left that day, keeping in mind, me and this woman had never met each other than the first time at the library, and I have not ever seen her again since that day. And so my oldest son is about 30 years old. At the time, he was finishing 3rd grade, so that lets you know how long ago that was. That was a long time ago, and I never saw her again after that day. But the information she gave me that day was very helpful, and it gave me a really, really nice start, going from no knowledge to some. And so a few weeks passed, or a few months passed, and my mother called, and she stayed in a nearby city, and was a natural food store, an herb store. And when she was shopping there, she saw a sign up about a homeschool group that was a mixed race homeschool group. So it was a mixture of Edomites, or white people, and black people. And so she was telling me about it, because at the time, I'm not sure how I knew it, but I felt it would be some issues with me trying to join any white homeschool groups that would have been in my area at the time. And so I was real happy to hear about this homeschool group, and that, it seemed to be, from what my mother was saying, accepting of black people being in it, because it was mixed. And the story my mother gave me, how the group was formed, is that the lady who formed it was a white woman who was married to a black man who had mixed race children. And when she would join the white homeschool groups, they were accepting of her and the children, but not of her husband. So she ended up leaving those homeschool groups and forming one herself. that was would be of mixed race, white and black. And so I joined the homeschool group, me and my two children at the time, and I learned a lot more about homeschooling and a whole lot more other information at the time. She used to have a plastic container, like a regular large plastic container like you would buy at Walmart, and she would have lots of books in it that when you would come to a homeschool get together, you could check those books out. And so I would do that. And so I learned a lot of information about other things through that too. Learned a good bit about vaccinations. I learned about having a VBAC, in other words, having a natural birth after having a C-section, just a variety. She used to have a variety of books in there, and I would look through them and check them out. So I learned about a lot of other things, including more about homeschooling. And so our family's journey of homeschooling started in the early 2000s up until now. So I'm still homeschooling now. My baby son, who is 13 years old, and so that was basically the start of our homeschool journey, and we have been homeschooling since then. My oldest son, who our homeschool journey started with, is currently 30 years old, and when it was time for him to graduate, he received his GED. So that's how he ended his homeschool experience at the time. Because here in Mississippi, you can either get your GED if you homeschool, or you can join a homeschooling program and receive your high school diploma. At the time, we weren't sure on how to move further with him, whether to do the GED or the high school diploma. So someone we knew said that they would, the children that were in their group, for the most part, received their GED, and that's how they would finish their children's, the first part of their school experience before college. And so that went into the decision to let our son study for his GED and receive his GED. Since then, my husband decided just to let the rest of the children choose whether they wanted to get their GED or whether they wanted to do a high school program. And so that's how it's been ever since. So everybody else chose the high school program so far. And so two of my children finished a high school program online and have moved on to college. They graduated a few years ago. And then recently we had another high school graduate through an online program. In our family, we use the Penn Foster High School program, but there are many high school programs out there, but that's the one we have used. So a few things before I close out that I wanted to mention that I hope you take from what I've shared today of our homeschool journey. Number one, if Yah wants you or your family to do something you have never done before, He will equip you with the knowledge and skills to do it. Because I know sometimes when we see Y'all wants us to do something that we don't have any experience in. Maybe at the time we don't even know anybody we can ask. Sometimes it makes us nervous because it's like the Creator's showing me something I need to do that I hadn't done it. I don't know anybody that's done it. Where do I even begin? But so I hope you take that from what I shared of our homeschool start in our homeschool journey. Is that, I had no knowledge of homeschooling. My husband had no knowledge of schooling. Neither one of us had been homeschooled, other than, like I said before, I got my high school diploma at home, but I didn't see that as homeschooling at the time. And I talk about that in one of my other videos about my decision to drop out of high school, and then how I received my high school diploma after dropping out of public high school. But have faith in that if whatever Yah is showing you or your family that He wants you to do, that you don't have experience in, you've never done it before, He will equip you with the knowledge to do it. You just need faith and a willing spirit, and move on things as He presents it. So what do I mean by move on things as He presents it? Just like, for example, when I met the lady in the library and she offered to discuss homeschooling with me and give me literature concerning homeschooling. Well, I had to take the time to go to her house. I didn't wait a month or 2 or 3 months to set up something with her before I went. So Yah will open doors for you to learn something or to gain knowledge on something He wants you to do. But you have to be diligent and about going through those doors when they open. Okay? Because just because He opened a door does not mean He's going to keep it open. Okay? So that's what I mean by that. Faith, a willing spirit, and move on things as He presents it. Number 2, another point I hope you get from our homeschool story. Yah can send what you need through any avenue He wants. He opened the door for our family through an Edomite woman, a white woman. That's how it started. Sometimes what you need is not going to always come from the place that you think it should come from. Now, our story was strange in a way because, or odd in a way, because on one hand, you had a section of Edomites or white people who didn't want to necessarily help us learn about homeschooling or weren't friendly in that way. But then at the end of the day, that's who ended up giving us Yah used to give us a pretty good start. And so I think that's an important thing to remember, that Yah can send you answers through any avenue when it's something He's showing you need to do. He can help you through any avenue that He chooses. Okay? Through any avenue. He can make somebody that calls somebody that don't even like you He can move their spirit to give you information you need and give you help you need. So that's another thing that I hope you take from our story also. But thank you for your time. If you have any questions or anything about anything I talked about in this particular video that you may want to know more about, I'll be doing another homeschool video. I'll be recording it today, and hopefully both of them are up by Thursday or Friday. Today is Wednesday, Revi'i. But if you have any questions, please leave them you can comment at the bottom of this video. If you'd like to contact me, you can email me at yascornerstone@gmail.com. yascornerstone@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at Supporting Yah's Cornerstone. And there's also a Facebook page called Supporting Yah's Cornerstone also. In order for me to see your question faster or your comment faster, it's going to be better to comment here under this YouTube video, or to you're welcome to DM me through Instagram or email me at yascornerstone@gmail.com. Thank you for your time. Please consider subscribing. And please share these videos with people you think it might be helpful. Even if a person doesn't live the Hebrew Israelite lifestyle, or any woman that you feel like these videos might be helpful, please share them. I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. I intend for this channel to be a channel of support and also a channel of testimony. And I hope that's what it continues to be. That's my intention. Thank you for your time. Shalom, shalom.